Hey, everybody, it's the Combat Cast. It's the man they call Dave Chevy, and we're still on a high of UFC 292, all the big shakings and going-ons that happened there. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk a little bit about this upcoming card with the Korean Zombie and Max Holloway. But first, Chevy, tell people what else we got coming up.
All right, coming up September 2nd, UFC Fight Night, Gane versus Spivak from France. That'll be a 3 p.m. Eastern card. And then September 9th, we're back with the pay-per-view from Australia, UFC 293, Adesanya versus Strickland. I don't know if you've looked at that card at all, but it is brutally soft. Yeah. And September 16th, UFC Fight Night, Grasso versus Shevchenko. So we're getting a belt, a fight for a belt on a fight night. So that's nice.
Yeah. That is nice. Now, what time's that card start? Do you know? Do you have that in front of you? I'm just curious. If you don't.
The fight night one, I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little curious about that. If they're going to make us stay up to like 10 o'clock for that, or are they going to give us
Yeah.
You know.
I'm not sure where it's happening either, because usually that's an indicator too. But
yeah, for sure. That Strickland Adesanya might be a old school Buffalo Wild Wings card for me.
I can't remember who's on it or whatever. I just remember looking at it and be like, not great. So
yeah. Well, we'll see as we get closer to what we want to do in our personal lives about that show. But in the meantime, that's the future. Let's talk more about the future. This weekend, you want to shout out some fighters. They're from Connecticut.
Yeah, a local guy, Billy Goff. Hopefully we can get him on the show sometime in the future, maybe after his fight. But he fights out of Groton, which is local for us, Groton, Connecticut. He's on the prelims fighting Kinoshita. So going to be waking up at 5 a.m. to watch Billy fight. So good luck to him.
Oh, yeah, Billy.
On the prelims. Also on the main card, starting off the main card versus Junior Tafa, Justin Tafa's younger brother, will be Parker Porter. You know, he's a UFC vet at this point, but he fights out of Hartford, Connecticut. So good luck to him as well. But let's get into the co-main event, which is this card, although it is very early, 8 a.m. main card start time, the card is pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the co-main event is, I can't tell you why, but I'm just the least interested in this fight. But that's what we're going to go over. Anthony Smith and Ryan Spann in the light heavyweight division.
All right, let me put my notes up here. I'd forgotten about this fight. All right, Combat Cast. Here we go. Anthony Smith, 36-18, 20 knockouts, 14 subs, 2 decisions. Ryan Spann, 21-8, 6 knockouts, 12 subs, 2 decisions. I'll say this, if you look at that record, those are 2 very well-rounded records. Comes to decisions, finishes. Actually, decisions is like the least thing that these 2 do. So even though Chevy says he's not the most interested in this fight, because I get it, Anthony Smith has been around forever, and are we really seeing 2 guys that are going to probably win the light heavyweight championship? It would probably appear not, although I would say Ryan Spann has maybe the most potential here, a little more athletic. But is Ryan Spann ready at this point in his career to get by Anthony Smith? That's the question. Last time we talked about Ryan Spann, I believe it was against Krylov, and you correctly pointed out that Krylov was probably going to drag him in deep waters, and as the fight went on, Krylov went. I thought Spann, very athletic, would be able to end it early. Maybe second time's a charm. Ryan Spann is too athletic, and he will end this early over Anthony Smith. But I feel like I'm going to get bit in the ass again. So Ryan Spann, second round TKO.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why I'm not super hyped on this is because I believe this fight already was put together once and fell through. So, I think when that happens, you get all hyped up for the fight, and it kind of fell through, and my anticipation for it drained. So, it is good matchmaking. I'm going to go with you. I don't know what I said last time, but the past is irrelevant now. So, I'm going to go with Ryan Spann. I think that he stuns Anthony Smith late in round 2, but I think he jumps on his neck and gets a submission.
Okay. Ryan Spann, we're both picking him. Don't let us down, baby.
All right. And I don't even know if I'm going to watch this fight because I love both guys so much. But Max Holloway versus Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie.
Korean Zombie, 17-7, 6 KOs, 8 subs, 3 decisions. Guy's a legend. Max Holloway, 24-7, 10 KOs, 2 subs, 12 decisions. Okay, so I said Korean Zombie is a legend. I want to point this out. He's a legend, and I don't mean this with any disrespect at all. Like Cowboy Cerrone is a legend, right? There's these fighters that they don't need to win the big one. They don't win the championship, but they're still legends because of their body of work, some of the stuff they've done, and, you know, the great fights that they've put on. They're up there. But Max Holloway is a legend, unfortunately, for the Korean Zombie. Like Khabib Nurmagomedov is a legend. He's one of the all-time greats, like an Anderson Silva. Like, he's that guy. So, and unfortunately, Max Holloway is a little younger, and he is still more in his prime than the Korean Zombie. I don't know if Max is even out of his prime, to be honest with you. We'll find out. So, unless something shocking happens, and you never know, I got Max Holloway all day in this one. I'm going to say he finishes him off in round 3, maybe 4.
I think Max 10-8s him every round. Okay. Korean Zombie gets beat up like he did by Volkanovski. We're all really sad at the end. He retires after this fight. I think he takes a real hard ass whooping real close to his home country. Yeah, like I said, I'm happy for Max. If, you know, this is a potential tune-up, I don't want to disrespect the Korean Zombie. I just think at this point in his career, Max is just on the top level, and the Zombie's on his way down. So sure. I think Max, stylistically also, he's just going to be too fast, too rangy, too durable for anything that Korean Zombie does land on him. So I think he just kind of boxes his face off for 5 rounds.
There you go. I mean, I can't really disagree with a lot of that too. That was another thing I'm thinking, but I think Holloway is going to eventually overwhelm him. So, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to last week's card, 292, Sterling versus O'Malley. I just want to shout out on the prelims. They had the Ultimate Fighter finales. Yeah. Kurt Habala, or I can't pronounce his name.
Habala.
Yeah, sure. Kurt wrapped up a sick triangle in a transition. Congratulations to him. But in the bantamweight fight, Cody Gibson and Brad Katona put on an amazing fight. And both guys ended up getting a contract, even though Brad was the winner, who made history by becoming the first fighter to win the Ultimate Fighter twice. So congrats to him. He's always been a favorite of mine. So even though he doesn't always put on the most exciting fights, he puts off a weird energy, and I like it. So congrats to those guys. I'm also glad that Cody got a contract too, because he definitely deserved it after that fight. And
he did put on an exciting fight that night. That was also fun of the night as well.
Yes, yep, for sure. All right, let's go through the main card. We'll go through it pretty quickly.
One thing real quick, though. Chris Weidman lost to Brad Tavares. I just really quick get your opinion. I think I know the answer. But Weidman's a dog. He gutted it out. He lasted 3 rounds. He looked a little timid at different times. Time to call it a career?
It's hard to say. My immediate reaction when watching the fight was yes. But Brad Tavares is a beast, a vet. He knew what he was getting into when he was fighting Weidman, so his takedown defense was great. I also think that ring rust is a real thing. I know a lot of fighters say it's not, but for some fighters, it definitely is, or it shows. So I think out of the cage for 2 years, he came back. Weidman definitely was game for sure. He just couldn't check those leg kicks on the side that wasn't injured, and ended up tearing an ACL or MCL or something. So depending on how long he's out, he's 40, damn near 40 years old now. Even if he comes back, he's got one. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I think he should, but let's say best case scenario, he's not actually torn anything, and he has to come back. He wants to do one more, whatever. But if this is a situation where he's going to be out for a year or so anyway, don't bother at this point.
You made it back. You showed that you could come back from the injury, even if you can't be your best. I mean, father time is an issue. It's not the leg necessarily. So, he came back, showed everyone he was tough. Brad Tavares got back on a win streak, so congrats to him. It was a tough fight. Also loved all the respect that Brad was showing Weidman. He helped him walk out of the cage. They had a great moment backstage, taking pictures and talking everything. So all the respect to both guys for sure. And Absolutely. If Weidman does call it, I mean, he had some of the greatest moments in the rise, like the real rise of the UFC to prominence. So shout out to him. He's done it all.
Absolutely. Hall of Famer.
All right. Main card. Marlon Vera versus Pedro Munoz. Thoughts?
Yeah. Chito got slack for being a slow starter again, and he really is. But I didn't think this was one of his slower starts. I actually thought he might have even won that first round. I know some of the judges had him winning that first round. It was a weird night for judges, though. Yeah. But I thought it was a close, competitive first round. However, as the fight went on, Vera does what he does. He figured things out. And Munoz is tough, but at the end of the day, I just think that Vera is just a better all-around martial artist, better round striker. And, the bantamweight division is sick. It's just nothing, but we're going to talk more about it later. But just great, great fighters. I can see a ton of people being champion right now. A lot of it has to do with the styles of fights. Mm-hmm. And Chito, thoughts on it? I just said, great performance, but also what a smart move that when, we had to switch in opponents and everything like that, or not even so, but just to be on this card. Like, he had Cejudo recently. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He stayed on the card and he played it, like in case Sean O'Malley. And now what do we got? We got Cody Sandhagen, the one guy who beat Chito. He's injured. And then Marab, the other guy who probably deserves it, is injured.
Great. And the UFC is likely to ice him for, not wanting to fight Sterling. So,
yeah.
We'll see. So it's going to be between Sterling getting a rematch and Chito. And Chito and Sean have history. So
history and stylistically, it's a fun new fight to promote. And it's a fight that probably still stylistically they would probably rather have with Sean fight.
Absolutely. The UFC is 100% wants Sean to be the champion. So
sure does. So
go ahead. Going back to this fight is really predicated. The entire thing was on Chito's jab. His jab was fantastic. He stuck Pedro with it so many times and it was so stiff. He was wobbling him with just the jab, and he was slipping it under his guard and under his right hand and everything. He looked great just with the jab. So shout out to Jason Perillo, who we couldn't remember his name last week. That striking was amazing. So yeah, I agree with you that Chito did look better in the first round, but he has to figure out this slow starting thing, especially in these 3-round fights. You can get away with it in the 5-round fights, but in 3-round fights, you can't give away a first round.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on. We're going to go through this one quickly, but Damon Blackshear and Mario Batista.
Again, more bantamweights, great prospects coming up. Blackshear took this on 7 days' notice. It was close. I thought he won the fight.
I thought he won too.
Yeah, I thought he did enough keeping him in trouble in the first 2 rounds. I thought he wore down and got tired, and I thought Mario Batista clearly won the third, but I thought Blackshear did enough to win the first 2 rounds. I was kind of disappointed because I thought, what a great moment for that guy. Mm-hmm. Didn't happen. At the same time, Mario Batista, hey, he did it. He did what he had to do, and it's not like he looked bad or anything like that. It was a good fight.
It was close. It was close. But I agree with you. I thought he got hosed. I thought Blackshear got hosed. Hopefully the UFC took care of him for, helping him out on 7 days' notice. Plus, he got hosed. So hopefully they just paid him his win bonus, to be honest with you. I doubt they did. It's probably fucking $7,000. So hopefully they figured it out. Dana can pay it out of his pocket and not even notice. But let's move on to maybe one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen in the octagon. Neil Magny versus Ian Gary.
Ian Gary, man, he dominated this. It wasn't even close. He probably could have finished him. That would be the one knock, is that he had Magny on one leg. He didn't want to take any chances. He just wanted to pick him apart. At the same time, that's exactly what he did. He picked him apart, and he did it with style points. It wasn't like it was boring or anything like that. It was just amazing. Magny didn't get finished. The trash talk with Ian Gary, he's borderline for me right now. Like, he can be fun, but he's like almost a little too much at certain times. Like, I haven't made up my mind, but he's still not in the doghouse with me yet. Good win for Ian Gary. I know Dana White said that Wonder Boy didn't want to fight. They tried to book him on. Well, yeah, Wonder Boy probably didn't want to fight on like 7 days' notice after maybe a weight cut. I doubt Wonder Boy wouldn't want a stylistic fight like Ian Gary. I'd love to see that fight. I hope that happens. Great call out, too.
Yeah, I thought Ian won every round 10-8. Like, I don't know how the judges didn't give him 10-8 for every round. He could have finished Magny in every single round, really. I mean, the first leg kick, he swept him off his feet. So we knew that Neil was tough. We know Neil is notoriously difficult to finish, especially in striking. A little bit easier when it comes to submissions, but with a performance like that, though, you would expect Ian to get a finish. You would think he would have found it. It seemed like he got that urgency in like the last 30 minutes 30 seconds. And, you know, if he had a little bit more time, he probably could have got the submission, but you'd like to see that urgency a little bit sooner. I don't think Neil really offered anything dangerous for him. He probably should have pushed it forward, but impressive performance, really dominated a staple of the division, the welterweight division. I think Neil Magny was like number 11 or something. So Ian Gary's got to be fighting top 6 guys, I would say, going forward. Wonder Boy is an excellent fight. I don't know why Wonder Boy would want to fight. I think he has a fight lined up with Usman. I think Usman gets him closer to a title shot quicker. Sure. Way worse matchup, though. He doesn't want to be fighting a guy who only wrestles, basically, where he could fight Ian Gary, who's only going to strike with him for the most part. So, but I think for Wonder Boy, it's about getting to the title shot as quickly as possible because he's like 1,000 years old. So
yeah, a lot of fight years in that man.
Yeah. All right. Also, as far as the antics, I'm with you. I'm borderline. Sometimes I'm like, this is funny, and then sometimes I'm like, it's a little cringy.
Right.
You know, when he was, flipping Magny off when Magny was like scooting around on his butt, that was cool. But then when the round ends or the fight ends and he's still flipping off, like, bro, you won and you whooped his ass. Like, he got the message. You don't need to keep giving it to him. So, like, Neil Magny's not a piece of shit, you know?
No, Neil said something at the press conference. I'm going to beat you up and discipline like I have to do my son. And he kind of ran with it that, like, Neil Magny beats up kids. I don't think that's what, whatever. Whatever it takes.
I think Neil's just bad at talking shit, and he was trying to, like, I bet he really doesn't beat his son or whatever, you know?
Absolutely not.
All right, let's move on. Co-main event, Zhang Weili versus Amanda Lemos.
What a performance by Weili Zhang. Zhang Weili, she just looks so dominant here, and so dominant, and yet there were 2 moments in the fight in particular for me. One was a choke at the end of the first round that Lemos hooked on. Very
ninja Darce looking thing, yeah.
Absolutely. Should have choked her out. I thought that she had it. Nope. Zhang gets out of it, holds on, and then there was another point where Lemos just hits with a really good solid jab. And you can see Lemos has great power in her hands, but didn't matter. Like, when you see the stats, you realize, despite talking about that, what a dominant performance it was by Weili Zhang still. I think it was one of the biggest strike. I think it might have the biggest strike.
I think it was the biggest differential of all time in women fighting. Yeah.
Incredible. Weili Zhang is beating Carla Esparza at wrestling. She's getting out of chokes by Brazilian black belts, and her key is her striking on top of all that. I book her up against Yan next in China and pull the trigger on that. And then you got Tatiana Suarez waiting in the background, and you got some fun fights waiting for this division. But I don't envy anybody trying to take the title off of this person.
Yeah, saying mollywopped Lemos for sure. That was also another super impressive performance she showed. She's levels above Amanda. I think I'm with you. I want to see the Yan fight in China. That's good for, the market of China. Great fight. I think that Weili gets through Yan fairly easily, though, with her grappling for sure. I'm way more interested in the Tatiana Suarez fight. I think at this point in the division, she's the only person that can, now that Rose is going up to flyweight, I think she's the only person that can cause any problems for Weili. So that's the most interesting matchup. But I do think that Yan has earned a shot, and I think that that's great for the nation of China, for both fighters being from China. So
it's big business.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on to the main event: Aljamain Sterling versus Sean O'Malley.
Let me tell you something about this. I didn't get to talk about this last week, but Tim Welch, his coach, we were talking about a little bit about him. Like, Tim talked about what a tough fight this was. And, for Sean O'Malley being cringeworthy a lot of times with the mentally undefeated, there were aspects of Sean I liked going into this fight. He gave Aljamain Sterling his props. He said one of the things he's nervous about, that Aljamain is the greatest bantamweight of all time in that division. All right. You're putting over your opponent. You're talking about, how great he is. And at the same time, they're both talking trash on each other. And they're getting right in each other's faces at the beginning of this fight. But then they both fist bump and, hey, let's just get at it. So there was an aspect of trash talk, but also there was an aspect of respect around here at different times. And you got that with Sterling after this fight too. I was really impressed before this when when O'Malley beat Yan. And at the same time, I wondered, did he really beat Yan? It was a close fight. But I was so impressed that he was able to hang from what he can. This is another level. Like, the fact that Sterling wasn't able to get him down in that first round, ragdoll him, and then he caught him, was pretty impressive. Now, that being said, these guys could fight again, and Sterling could do that. It's just an interesting style of fights. I feel like right now, O'Malley is at this point in his career, and, he talks about working 2 a day since he was like 16 years old. They put the work in, and you see it. I feel like it's almost like he's kind of got it down on how to beat wrestlers. Like, if you look at but he's improved. He struggled more with Cheeto, who he lost with, and even Pedro Munoz, that no contest, with a little back and forth from the beginning. But with Sterling, the wrestler, he was able to kind of keep him at bay. Probably did lose the first round, but, he's playing the long game. I don't know. I feel like stylistically, I'm wondering if O'Malley could be like a wrestler's kryptonite. Like, almost like, I'm interested to see how he does with a Marab and a Cejudo, if he does well with that. But then maybe Cheeto is going to be stylistically a tough fight for you still. Maybe Corey said it. Maybe a guy that can strike with you but has a little bit of wrestling and some other tricks up his sleeve is going to be your problem. I'm very interested to see. And again, it just makes this division, which was already, I thought, the best division in the UFC, maybe replace lightweight. Now I just feel even more excited about this division. And, oh, by the way, love him or hate him, he's the biggest star in the band. He's
the biggest star in the UFC.
He's the biggest star in the UFC. You got Adesanya, but I'm going to say he's the biggest star in UFC bantamweight history. Not the best, but the biggest star in UFC bantamweight history.
Yeah. As going back to the wrestler thing, his length is just so hard to deal with, I think, for those guys. You saw how he caught Aljo. Aljo was like really overextended, lunging in, and Sean just that step back counter right hand. Just you could see Aljo saw it coming and closed his eyes and tried to turn away from it, but he's so long and his timing is so great. That's really how he gets these things done. So impressive from him for sure. I'm with you though. I loved the build up. They talked a bunch of shit, but ultimately respect one another because they are both warriors in there. Also, shout out to Aljo. Maybe handled the loss the best I've ever seen in the UFC for sure. He's getting booed and "fuck you, Aljo" chants the whole time. Yeah, he's just all class. So all respect to Aljo. I do think he deserves an immediate rematch. just because he was so dominant in those fights that he had. But bantamweight is very exciting. There's a lot of storylines going on. So if he doesn't get it right away and he doesn't want to go up, he can work his way back to a title for sure.
Well, I will say on a personal note, you did kind of make it sound like you were going to let your buddy Marab, who's been waiting patiently, take the shot too. So it's kind of like, what is that not going to happen now? I think he's doubting himself at featherweight. Like, I get what he's saying about Volkanovski might wreck his chin because Sean could do that. But also, I don't think Sean's completely wrong when he says one of the things that he had going for him was that Sterling cuts up so much weight that he's dehydrated. And I think his chin might be better at featherweight.
For sure. He cuts 40 pounds or something like that. So, I mean, that's just so much. He's so jacked. So I still think he'd be very strong at featherweight and less depleted. He might, love how much stronger he feels at featherweight. So I think the move personally is for him to go up, but I'm sure Ray Longo and Matt Serra will figure that out with him. So
absolutely. All right. We've hung around a little extra today. I know Chevy's had a long day. Let's take it home, man. What we got coming up again?
All right. September 2nd, UFC Fight Night, Gane versus Spivak, 3 p.m. Eastern card from France. And then September 9th, UFC 293, Adesanya versus Strickland, soft pay-per-view card. Hopefully they fill it out a little bit more. And September 16th, UFC Fight Night, Grasso versus Shevchenko, the flyweight belt on the line.
We got a title fight for a fight night. All right, guys. We'll see you at the fights.